Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Make sure you click through in the description here. It'll get you right to it. You bypass the Apple upcharge. You can cancel at any time. 10 different channels plus our stage shows. We did a stage show today. We do not put those on the podcast feed. So if you want to catch up with them, make sure that you subscribe to Off the Floor. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Includes our friends over at U-Break Wheel Fix. Again, go to ubreakwheelfix.com. Again, that's ubreakwheelfix.com or U-Break Wheel Fix on Instagram. Mention us to Mark and his team. You get 5.5% off your next order. Again, it's U-Break Wheel Fix. They'll do the powder coating. They'll fix your wheels. Get them the Vice colors if you want them now that those are back in styles again. Check them out. U-Break Wheel Fix or ubreakwheelfix.com. And now we go to today's episode. I will get the music right here before.
Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor, and in a very rare occasion, this is a good news episode. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at Five Reasons Sports. We got Naveen Ganglani. You can follow him at that exact Twitter address. Of course, he's our friend in the Philippines. He's covered for us when the teams have gone over there, including Eric Spoelstra. Happy to have Naveen on with us today. Also, you should check out his account because he often does the late night work for us and posts all the videos that people don't see in the middle. Well, because it's the middle of the night here, but it's not there. So we appreciate it. What is the time difference there again? Is it 12 hours? Am I right on this finally?
So it's 13 hours right now, but I think you guys have when you guys lose an hour or gain an hour, then it changes from 12 hours, 13. That's East Coast. So when the Heat has West Coast games, it kind of starts at 11:30 in the morning here. It's quite crazy, to be honest with you.
I was gonna say that's not bad. I wouldn't mind that. The only thing I ever liked about living in Los Angeles, and I didn't like a lot, I lived there for 6 months, was that I got to watch NFL football starting at 10 in the morning out there on a regular basis, and that was pretty much the only thing that I appreciated about living in LA. All right, the good news here today, Naveen, is that Tyler Herro is an all-star, and I will say that before the season, if you had polled the majority of Heat fans, they would have said there was no chance that this was going to happen. If you were to tell Heat fans before the year that Jimmy Butler would have been suspended for a total of 14 games, we're not there yet, but that's the totality of the suspension, and had requested a trade, that Terry Rozier would be under investigation for something that happened in Charlotte. We're not going to focus a lot of attention on that, but there was a lot of stuff on social media about that today. So we'll probably end up doing some kind of a separate episode on it. And that Tyler Herro, who has been basically the subject of trade rumors for the past 3 years. And I will say that I was one of those because 2 off seasons ago, maybe 3 off seasons ago at this point, it all runs together. I got information that it was pretty likely that Tyler was going to get traded that offseason. Of course, it never happened. And there were the rumors about him possibly getting included in a trade for Dame. The Blazers never engaged. There was the talk about him being traded possibly for James Harden. Now he and Harden are both all-stars in the same year. It would have put a lot against that, a lot of money against that as well. And now here he is, having survived all of these rumors, the Mitchell rumors, the Lillard rumors, the Harden rumors, and on a team that's only 500. This is not a team that's 15 games above 500 that's cruising to anything. I mean, they're essentially a play-in team. They're an average team. He's an all-star and he's deserving. And I didn't think he was going to get it, Naveen, not because he's not deserving, because his numbers suggest that he is, but I didn't think, even with the coaches voting, that he would win over Trey because of reputation, Trey Young, who was not on the team, or LaMelo Ball, who I don't think deserved it because of Charlotte's record, and there's a lot of looter stuff going on there. But he was number one among the fan vote. The coaches don't have to consider that. It is something that they at least take a look at. Naveen, I'll start here, and then we'll get through the list. Were you surprised?
A little bit, but also not, if that makes any sense, because he played at an all-star level. Although it was one of those situations where, I'll believe it when I see it. Just because, like you said, Ethan, before the season, what if someone went up to you and was like, "Oh, hey, Tyler Hero, he's going to be an all-star." You would have been like, there must have been a lot of injuries, or maybe he went in as a replacement for somebody who got injured. But no, he was voted in by the coaches. Now, that part I'm not so surprised about, and I'll say why. First, the two guys, well, technically the three guys he went over were, like you said, Trey Young, LaMelo Ball, and Tyrese Halliburton. Now, Tyrese got off to a really slow start this season, and Indiana, although they have been playing better as of late, I don't think the record was good enough to warrant two All Stars. And Siakam, his teammate, got in. So I think he got the nod. In Atlanta's case, I don't think Trey Young has even been their best player this season. I know the stats might say that, but I think Jalen Johnson has become that team's best player. Unfortunate that he's out for the season now. And in the case of Charlotte, LaMelo Ball, look, just because you put up great stats, it doesn't mean you're a winning player. And I don't think LaMelo Ball is a winning player just yet. He hasn't ever had a winning season with Charlotte. Yes, the stats are awesome, but to me, he's a 2K All Star more than an NBA All Star. Now, I posted a tweet earlier, basically when Tyler was named as an All Star, and I basically said, okay, he has carried the Heat this season. And immediately, as what usually happens on X, which I'm sure you know about, people jump to conclusions and was like, carry the team, what are you talking about? And they had all sorts of criticism. But I feel the fact that he did carry the team, and I still believe he carried the team, is the reason why the coaches voted him in. Now, look, Miami's record isn't anything remarkable. They're a 500 team. Right now, they look like a squad that might get eliminated in the play-in or the playoffs. But they're still in the conversation. Just a few days ago, they were the 6th seed. Take note of everything that has happened for Miami this season. Jimmy Butler, like you said, has been suspended a lot. And even in the games he played, it was either he was playing without joy and kind of mailing it in, or even early in the season, he'd play a few games and then he also missed some games. So really, they've had him for like what, 30 to 35% of the season so far, maybe somewhere there. Bam Adebayo, we've talked about his regression so much. I know Jovic has played somewhat better as of late, but early in the season, it looked like he might have fallen out of the rotation. Hawkes just hasn't been the same. Rozier, it's starting to look like the worst trade in Heat history, at least for the last few years. Duncan, yes, has had these moments, but we know there's a ceiling to what Duncan can do. So who has been the one constant? Who has been the guy for the Heat that you could look at and you could say, well, he's been carrying the team. He has been the reason that they haven't succumbed to maybe being a lottery team just yet. Because even Spoelstra, for as good as he is, this has been far from a great Eric Spoelstra season. So the one guy who's really performed best for the Heat has been Tyler Hero. And because of that, and the fact that they're still in the playoff chase, I feel they deserved one All Star, and there was really no other choice.
Well, you're right with Jalen Johnson because I think that he probably would have been an all-star, and I don't know that that would have squeezed a guard off the team because the East was heavy with guards. So as we go through it, and you look at the reserves, you mentioned Trey, you mentioned I think Halliburton's slow start sunk him. He has played a lot better over the last month, but there was a lot of negativity about him coming into the season because he didn't play much in the Olympics. Then he got off to a slow start with Indiana, and they're ahead of the Heat right now, so that they have moved ahead. But I think if you take a look at the rosters right now and who was picked, we look obviously if Lamelo had been named the starter. And it just shows you that the other categories other than the fans just didn't view him as an all-star because he led in the all-star voting among the fans, but that only counts for a percentage of it for the starters. And the others on that voted on that, which I guess would have included the media and the players, did not rank him very high at all. And so once he didn't make it as a starter, I thought that helped Tyler and gave him a little bit more of a chance. I'm just taking a look at the list here now, and I think I should have had this up before we started it. But the guards are essentially going to be, what do we have? We have Dame, we have Mitchell, we have Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Tyler, and am I missing one other here? I believe. Let's see who the other was, because I'm trying to see who the when I was looking at the list of who ended up getting picked. So Tyler ends up getting picked. Here we go. Let me go with this is a little cleaner. Here are the starters: Brunson, Mitchell, Tatum, Giannis, and Cat. I can't really argue with the front court starters there. I don't think Tatum's having the best year ever, but I again I get it. Giannis certainly is an MVP candidate. Cat's had a tremendous year with the Knicks. Brunson and Mitchell being the starters again, I think that helped Tyler with LaMelo not being a starter. And then the backups, Jaylen Brown, yes, Pascal Siakam. So there's your Indiana representative. Darius Garland is the other guard. So they ended up taking three players from Cleveland. I can't argue with it. We saw them last night. Garland didn't play, but they have been wire to wire pretty much. Number one team in the Eastern Conference. They did have a loss to Boston that made people question it, but they've been more consistent than Boston overall. Jared Allen's been an all-star before, so now they've got all four of their top players have been all-stars at one time or another. And Garland has had a very good year, even if it's not as statistically gaudy as Tyler. There's a lot more wins. So getting to the rest of the team again, backups will be Brown, Siakam, Garland, Cunningham, Mobley, Lillard, and Herro. Bam has not had an all-star season. I think most have agreed upon that. I don't know where he would have made it this year anyway. Siakam and Mobley are the only bigs that they took off the bench, if you want to qualify them as qualify Siakam as a big. And so the rest of them they took were all guards. And I know that there's going to be a lot of conversation, Naveen, about Trey. Trey has the huge assist numbers. Trey's efficiency is not where Tyler's is. Atlanta is below the Heat in the standings. And the thing about Tyler is when you look at the efficiency, to me, that's what jumps out this year. It's the efficiency and the consistency. He has one player that was mentioned also is Maxey. Tyler this year has been under 40% shooting in just 7 games. Maxey has been under 40% shooting, I believe, in 13 different games this season. Also, if you look at players who are averaging Tyler's raw numbers in terms of points, +5 rebounds, +5 assists, and his shooting percentages, the only player who's doing that, who's in the same category in the entire league right now, is Jokic. These were all arguments, and I think also, I know Spo says he didn't heavily campaign for him, but I think if you were to ask most NBA coaches, like who would they rather coach right now, LaMelo Ball or Tyler Herro, they'd likely pick Tyler. And then I think they might pick Tyler over Trey also. What do you think tipped it there?
I feel like this came down to the votes of the coaches who watch the games, who have seen their teams go up against Tyler. And you mentioned the stats, Ethan. There's a press release from the Heat. So let's read it out. First, you're right. He's averaging career highs, points, rebound, assists. He's never shot the ball this well from the field. He also has hit a three-pointer in 79 straight games, which is a Heat franchise record, 12 longest streak in NBA history. And he's doing all of this, and because there's more, as like we said, the main guy of the team. He's doing all of this as the main guy that opposing squads are scouting for before they face the Heat. Do you think it's Bam Adebayo? I don't think so at this point. I think it's Tyler. I think when you look back in the game against the Magic, yes, the Heat won in double overtime, and Tyler didn't shoot particularly well, but I thought he still played good enough to lead that squad against a Magic team that we know is really good defensively and targeted him. I mean, Anthony Black was harassing him at a certain point with the defensive pressure. So he is the main focus of the defense every game. And when you look at the other teams, like we mentioned, Atlanta, who are opposing coaches more afraid of, Trae Young or Jalen Johnson, right? I mean, if you face Philadelphia, yes, they've been injury plagued this year, but there are some games that the defense still has to account for Paul George. And the 76ers' record isn't as good as the Heat's. So I think that gave Tyler an advantage over Maxi as well. And it's the intangibles too, Ethan. You're seeing Tyler do more of the little things. Yes, once in a while he will still take those ill-advised contested three-point shots that you just kind of live with because he's so talented when it comes to shooting and offense. Yes, from time to time he will dribble the ball into traffic with two defenders waiting to swipe at him rather than swing it out because he's looking to create. But when you give him the ball in late game situations, there's confidence there. I mean, you think back to the two Detroit games where he rallied that team in the end of regulation to force overtime. You think back to that Orlando game when he hit the game winner, or again, that Orlando game a few days ago when he hit that dagger in double OT. And he's had a lot of those moments. You know, his defense has been better than it's ever been, even if it's not elite just yet. You could see the team kind of galvanizing towards him. His teammates empower him to take control of the offense, to lead the squad. And I feel like, other NBA coaches, they have, not all of them, but some of them have been in a similar situation where you might have a franchise cornerstone who doesn't want to be there, who isn't playing up to the money he's supposed to be getting in his contract, a teammate in Bam who isn't playing up to the standards. So I think opposing coaches see that, and the other intangibles we mentioned on top of the counting statistics and the efficiency, and they're like, he has really been the safety net of this team all season long, and they rewarded him for it.
Well, I want to go through some of the numbers here because a lot of this is told by the numbers and some of it isn't. For those who say that he's just shooting more this year, his field goal attempts are actually flat. Last year, 17.5. This year, 17.7. And this is a good comparison because he only played 42 games last year. That's part of this, by the way, too. He's played 45 out of 46. Pat called him fragile, and he's responded by missing only one game. Pat called out someone else at that same press conference, and that person lost his joy. I know you've made that comment before. Um, 42 games to 45 games for so far this season. He's already played more games this year than he played all last year. Shot attempts have gone from 17.5 to 17.7, virtually the same. But the averages 44% overall last year to 47.4. 3-point percentage has gone up from 39.6 to 40. So basically the same, but on more attempts. 7.9 up to 9.7. So with increased volume, efficiency has stayed at the same high level. Free throw attempts. This was the thing that we didn't know if he could do. Brady and I, Alex, we all talked about this a lot before the season. 2.6 attempts last year, in line with his career average. This year, 4 attempts, still shooting 87%. Rebounds, 5.6 this year, highest of his career. Assist, 5.4 this year, highest of his career, up from 4.5 last season. Also, and this is harder to measure, I think he's playing better defense this year. He's never going to be an elite one-on-one defender, but I think his on-ball defense has been much better. His instincts are much better. He's not getting hunted as consistently as he got hunted before, and that is with having constant change in the lineups. And they really, until recently, when they put Ware in there, have had pretty much 2+ defenders playing on a regular basis, Bam and Haywood. Jimmy, as you said, has been checked out of some games. He can be a plus defender when he wants to be. He wasn't all the time this year. His defensive metrics, as we've talked about a lot, dipped a lot more than his offensive metrics. His offensive metrics, Jimmy's were very efficient still. When he cared, he could still do it. Defensively, the metrics have not been there this year. So it's not like they've had a lot of players to protect Tyler defensively this year, and yet he has not stood out like a sore thumb like he has in the past. And so I think statistically, when you look at it, again, the raw numbers of 24, 6, and 5, and then you're talking about 47%, 40% from 3 on extremely high volume, playing all but one game, and buying into what they wanted. Because that's the other part of this. We were having conversations if he was going to start this year still. Remember, Haslam went on. I know he's been on the OG show since, and they patched things up. But Haslam went on and said, he should be a sixth man. Okay, now he's an all-star. And I think this whole thing that Tyler has, which is his pinned tweet, which is, shout out to everybody doubting me. I think that has fueled him this year. And I can't think, and we'll get to this on the other side of this of where this goes. I can't think of another South Florida athlete who's proven more people wrong. Honestly, I really can't. And because this is someone who burst on the scene. I mean, I said he'd be a future All-Star in the third week. I have a tweet which I put out there today that proved it, but I had my doubts over time. I had my doubts over time on whether he fit into this group with Jimmy and Bam, whether or not he could stay healthy enough. And there's only one more thing for him to do, so we'll get to that on the other side of this. But it's definitely deserving. I appreciate the fact that he's backed off from sort of talking it up so much, and that it ended up happening anyway. Um, he wasn't begging for it. Even yesterday, he said, "We'll see what happens." He didn't really want to talk about it after a loss, and he ends up getting it. I really think I really think it's deserving this year, and it's something that honestly the Heat organization needs. All right, before we go any further, though, I do want to mention a great sponsor of the Five Reasons Sports Network, our friend Eric Rubenstein. If you have a car accident, obviously we're not wishing that on anybody, but if you're injured, reach out to our guy Eric. He's from South Florida, went to St. Thomas University, graduated magna cum laude. And here's the biggest thing. He'll get you your money. If you have any kind of a car accident, reach out to him. Again, check him out at ericrubenstein.com, at Attorney Rubenstein on Instagram, or give him a call at 877-829-ERIC. That's 877-829-ERIC, which is also 3742. So 877-829-3742. His slogan is "Ask about me, I gotcha." If you follow his Instagram account, you'll understand everything about that, because it's one of the more interesting ones that you'll find. Miami guy through and through, and he'll help you get your money. All right, let's get to this, because we talk about everything he's already proven. He said he considered himself to be there with Luka and Trey and Ja. Only one of those guys is an all-star other than him this year. He talked about how he wanted his goal this year was just to stay healthy. When I asked him early in the season, about what he'd proven himself, I think it was through 20 games. He said he didn't want to say, but it seems like the one thing above all was that he could be on the court. I think I see what you see, that the players are starting to rally behind him a lot more. They sort of view him as a young leader now at 25. I don't think he's going to be in trade conversations for a little while, though I saw some people throwing him in the trade machine for Fox, but I don't think that's something that the Heat would seriously think about doing at this stage. But there's one thing left, right? I mean, the one thing left is do it in the playoffs, right? Like that's what we're waiting on. And last year it was kind of thrown on him where Jimmy wasn't there. Tyler had one brilliant game, and he had four not so brilliant
Duds.
games when he was being blitzed, and he had to see those kind of coverages. He's talked about how he wasn't really ready for it. Do you think he would be ready for it this time? Can you go into the playoffs with him as your number one offensive option and have success?
Well, it depends what your expectations are. If your expectations are, can they make it to at least the conference finals? I don't think so. If your expectation is, can they put up, an admirable fight in the first round? Maybe upset the team to make it to the second round in case they get fortunate with an injury or a lucky bounce. Yeah, I think so. Look, he's also just 25 years old. So if people are expecting him to average 28, 8 and 8 in the postseason, or put up numbers or performances like Jimmy did, I don't think he's going to do that. And I think you're just going to be setting yourself up for disappointment. Is he the number one in the championship team? I don't think he'll ever be the number one on the championship team. Can he be the second best scorer on the championship team? I think that's his ceiling. I think ultimately, if you have championship aspirations, and we keep mentioning championship aspirations because, in the words of Pat Riley, there's winning and there's misery, then Tyler ultimately will probably be your second go-to scorer in that situation. I don't think we're at the point anymore where we can rely on Bam to be one of those guys as well who will be an offensive machine. I think ultimately Bam's ceiling is what we've seen in the playoff runs in the last few years, where yes, he's more of an all-around hub, rebounds, defense, play makes, scores from time to time. But Tyler at least has elevated himself to the point where, okay, yeah, I can rely on that guy to drop buckets. I can rely on that guy to not be scared. I mean, it's only 1 year, so I don't think we can say yet I can rely on that guy to be healthy and durable for 3 straight months of intense basketball. I think that more than anything is what we need to see for the rest of the season, at least for me. You know, he has more responsibilities now, and so far he's thriving in it. But we've also barely crossed the halfway point of the season. So if he just keeps doing what he's doing, stays healthy for the second part of the regular season, and puts up at least something close to what he's doing the regular season now in the play-in or in the playoffs, then at the least you can come away with the season saying, hey, we have an all-star caliber building block. We just need that one guy again to complete the set right now. And ultimately, if it does come to the point where you have a chance to get, just spitballing here, hypothetical, if you have the chance to get a Luca in 2026 or another superstar who suddenly becomes available, the thought of including Tyler in that package, and again, we're going back to trading the guy, poor guy, but the thought of including an all star now in that package just makes it more appealing. And in the
Yeah.
meantime, even if you don't trade him, you have an all star caliber player on the roster. That's something worth building on.
He's never getting out of it, is he? It feels like he's never going to get out of it. Like no matter
Never.
how high he gets to, and the reason is exactly what you said earlier. The question of whether or not he could be a number one on a title contending team. And the reality is, this is no slight to Tyler. There's only like 8 to 10 players in the league at any one
Yep.
time that you can say that about. And that's why so few guys have been the number ones on championship teams. I mean, we went from Kobe and Duncan and Shaq to LeBron, and then to Steph slash Curry. I mean, Steph slash Durant. I mean, that's and Giannis. I mean, there's only so many. Okay, and in the case of Boston, it's more of, in my view, more of a collective than having one guy who's kind of stands out above the rest. But I think that I don't think Jalen and Tatum, if you take them off those teams and put them on other teams, would necessarily be able to lead you to a title. But when you put the two of them together, that's a little bit of a different deal. So Tyler's always going to have that just because he's not physically overwhelming. He's never going to be. But he deserves credit for putting on the weight this year in a functional way that made him better. He deserves credit for staying healthy. Obviously, he deserves credit for buying into what they were trying to do this year. And I guess the question now becomes, what do you surround him with? Okay, so let's close there. Because they tried it with kind of the small point guard next to him, and obviously Terry has not been a fit in that regard and doesn't really act as a point guard. But they need a wing player eventually, to sort of complement that, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. And we also, going back to the Kyle Lowry days, there were a lot of, especially that 2023 season, there was a lot of talk about how Kyle and Tyler didn't exactly fit with each other in the starting unit compared to like the year before when Tyler was coming off the bench. I know there's been a lot of talk of the Fox situation as of late. I think those two would actually fit with each other in the backcourt. Now, I don't think they'd be your elite defensive backcourt, and you still have issues when you take on other teams with elite offensive backcourts. But I like their combination theoretically, and that's not to say I want the Heat to get Fox at all costs right now, although it would be pretty fun. But that's the kind of point guard that I think would fit with Tyler. You get the point guard who can slash to the paint, kick it out to him for potentially open catch and shoot opportunities. You can have them play off one another. And Tyler Loki, I think, is also deadly in transition because he's been able to finish at the rim and in the paint better. And even in some transition opportunities where he runs out to the corner or the wing for an open 3-point shot, that's for his caliber, that's considered a good shot. So I think pairing him with a speedy guard who can push the pace, essentially a version of Terry Rozier that is better and can pass better. I think that's the Aaron Fox right there. I think they would fit well with each other. But even if it's not Fox, yes, another wing would be ideal. But would you want a wing to take the ball away from him in terms of creating top of the key? I think I'd much rather focus on getting another co-running mate, another guard who can relieve him of some ball handling duties, especially when it comes to bringing down the court against pressure, where he can struggle sometimes, and still create kickouts to him so he can get some easy looks as well from his specialty zones.
All right. Well, Tyler Hero, a first-time All-Star here for the Miami Heat, will be out there in the Bay Area. again, in a year where they've dealt with a lot of different issues, from Jimmy to Bam to now this Terry thing to being 500. One feel good story. And as we reported tonight, he's likely to participate in the 3-point shooting contest as well. He was only going to do that, he made it known to people, if he was in the All-Star game itself. So he's going to be in the All-Star game. So we'll see him in the 3-point shootout as well. Naveen, appreciate the time. Thank you much, sir. Thanks to our sponsors, You Break Wheel Fix, and also EricRubenstein.com.
Thanks for having me. And I hope we get to see Khalil in San Francisco as well.
I think he may get in. We'll see. Well, Jeremy Kane's injured, and I've heard that that's a strong possibility. So we'll see if we can see Ware play out there also. Thanks, Naveen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ethan.